Hello, so today I'm supposed to be talking about, well, actually, rewind for a second. I realized that I haven't done a video in 2 days. I thought it had only been 1 day, but it's the end of the semester and all my days are blurring together, and whatever, you guys aren't watching them anyways. So, alright, so, I was supposed to do, yesterday, I was supposed to do most difficult experiences of my entire life, most difficult things that's ever happened to me. And today I was supposed to do my cell phone. However, I feel like my cell phone is an inanimate object. It's pretty boring, and I mean, it's a cell phone. I use it to text and call people, so I'm not gonna do that one. I feel like I was gonna stick to it like completely, but then I saw that and I was like, I can't do a whole thing on my cell phone. I think people use their cell phones too much already. So I am simply going to do the other one, the most difficult experiences, because I feel like I could talk about that for a little longer anyways. So technically this is like day 5 or 6, but it's going to be day 4, so live with it, because whatever. Okay, so serious time. My most difficult experiences, I would have to say, I'm going to do one negative and one positive to keep this short. Like a good difficult experience and a bad one. I'm going to start out with the bad one so the video ends positively. I'm going to have to say the worst one I've ever been through is probably, I'm just going to sum it up and say my entire senior year of high school, because that year was just the shittiest year you could ever imagine. I hated being in school, I hated my classes, I hated the people around me, and I think that stemmed a lot from the fact that my parents were fighting and got divorced, and my dad cheated on my mom, and like, I don't know, it was just like all this stuff, and like dealing with myself, and I started to kind of sorry, I'm a little sick, so if I sniff a lot, that's why. I started to kind of like come into who I was and actually start learning like who I was. And so I feel like amongst all of that, on top of everything else, my parents were on and off a lot. Me and my boyfriend, who had just started dating at the time, were fighting a whole lot. I didn't care about school. I didn't really feel like I had any friends. I didn't know who I was. That was just an awful year for me, and I was so glad that was over. And finally got past that, because I don't know, that was the year that really, I think, taught me a lot about myself, because I went through a lot of things that, like before, I was sheltered and didn't really, I don't know, understand a lot about the world and how it worked, and I feel like that year kind of taught me a lot about not only myself but the world as well, and I started realizing I didn't belong where I was, and yeah, it was, I'm sure a lot of you have been through similar things. I'm not trying to make my experience like, oh, I'm so individual, like I know a lot of people have went through similar things, but for me that's the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. Well, experience per se. I think if I had to narrow it down to the worst day of that year, if we're talking about an individual experience, it would be the day that my dad left, and I found out he was cheating and everything. I remember I'd never been so angry in my entire life, because my parents were always very conservative, and they were always actually pretty like loving towards each other, and it seemed like, and my friends would tell me this too, like one of the few parents that they knew like still were happy married, and like that just all fell apart for me. You grow up seeing this relationship that you think is ideal, and even if you don't agree with like how the relationship is, you can see that like marriage works out, and that all fell apart for me then. So actually, that day went up to my dad. I was like, he was like packing his stuff, and they were yelling at each other. I just walked in the room, and I was like, Dad. He's like, what? And he turned around towards me, and I like punched him square in the face, which I'm not proud of, but that's just, I'm never like a violent person, and that's how like upsetting that experience was for me, that I punched someone in the face. So on to my best experience. That was hard for me to go through, but well worth it, was probably traveling internationally alone for the first time. My best friend lives in Germany, and I visited her in between when was it? I think it was my junior year. Yeah, my junior year in high school, I visited her in between junior and senior year. That's when it was. Yeah, because I started my senior year and I had just gotten back from Germany. But I actually visited her. We met through like a pen paling system at the school, which no one really actually wrote or talked besides me and her. So, and I kind of got the whole like exchange thing set up. Me and the teacher who ran the program did. And so we took about 7 or 8 students and like 2 chaperones over there. And I had an awesome time. It was my first time flying, and I went over there. But this last summer, I decided to go back and see her again, which she's come over here since then, but go back to Europe and see her again. And had to travel internationally, and that was one of the scariest things I've ever had to do, because it was only my second time flying, really, and I had no clue how anything worked. I had no clue what I needed. Like, it was a growing experience. It really was, because I was literally on my own. I had about 24 hours of travel time because I got the cheapest flight possible, and it had like a 9-hour layover in Dublin, and so luckily they spoke English, so I could get around without feeling bad. And sorry, my phone just went off. And without feeling like, oh crap, I don't know the language, and I feel rude if I speak English, and all that other stuff that you have to worry about when you're not in an English-speaking country and you don't know a second language like me. So yeah. That was fun, sitting in Dublin's airport for 9 hours straight. It was the longest 9 hours of my life. I was scared to fall asleep because I didn't know, like, what are there sketchy people who are going to dig in my bags while I'm sleeping, and there was, like, nowhere comfortable. It was like literally, Dublin's airport is like a food court and, like, a few little chairs and a couple shops. Like, yeah, there's more to it, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I was stuck in that my phone died early on, and I didn't have a exchange thing for the electricity, so I was stuck without communication, and it was awful. But it was well worth it. This summer was amazing, and I miss it so much all the time. I stayed over there for a month. We went to Ireland together. And like, I'm hoping soon I can go back over, and maybe we can go to like Italy or something. So now I'm definitely more comfortable flying by myself, and that was well worth it. Yeah, so those are the hardest experiences I've ever had to go through or whatever. Alright, so thanks for watching if you actually did, and if you didn't, shame on you. Alright, bye.